The warning no one took seriously. The hall of the Galactic Council was larger than any cathedral on Earth. Tall crystal walls glowed with soft blue light. Dozens of alien species sat in curved rows, their eyes fixed on the single figure. Standing in the center, a human ambassador Jonathan Reeve stood tall in his dark Earth Alliance uniform. His voice was calm, but every word felt sharp like a blade. "This is our final warning," he said. "If you continue your attacks on human colonies, we will respond. And you will not like how we respond." The chamber fell silent for a moment. Then, like a ripple across still water, the laughter began. A scaled senator from the Drask Confederacy hissed in amusement. A tall, thin creature from the Halorian Union leaned toward its neighbor. "Humans," it whispered, "are children. They have been in space for less than 2 centuries. More chuckles followed. The council leader, a four-eyed being with silver skin, finally spoke. "Ambassador Reeve," it said, "your worlds are small. Your fleets are weak. Do not mistake stubbornness for strength." Jonathan did not flinch. "I am not here to debate strength," he replied. "I am here to give you a choice. Leave our people alone, or the stars will remember what follows." The council members exchanged glances. Some rolled their eyes. Others smirked. In the far back, a few alien representatives avoided looking at the human. They saw something different in his eyes. Not arrogance, not fear. Something colder. Jonathan turned and walked toward the exit. His boots echoed against the polished floor. Just before the massive doors closed, he spoke one last sentence without turning around. "The next time you hear from Earth, it will not be words." The doors sealed shut. Outside the chamber, alien news drones hovered, recording his every move. Within hours, the story spread across the galaxy. Human ultimatum delivered. Council laughs it off. On the central worlds, people joked about it in bars and marketplaces. On fringe colonies, the broadcasts called humans loud but harmless. Memes and crude animations of Earth ships exploding circulated across alien networks. But far from the bright heart of the galaxy, on quiet trade routes and lonely star systems, whispers began. A Sharath patrol ship vanished near human space. A mining freighter sent a distress signal. Then nothing. A smuggler claimed to see a massive shadow moving between asteroid belts, but his navigation logs were mysteriously corrupted. The council dismissed these as accidents and space hazards. They were wrong. On Earth, inside the underground command center of the Earth Defense Directorate, the mood was nothing like the council's mockery. Giant screens showed maps of alien-controlled systems. Red dots marked their military outposts. Admiral Yara Solon stood at the head of the war table. "They won't listen," she said, "so we moved to Phase 2. Around the table, generals nodded. A quiet hum filled the room as encrypted orders were sent to hidden fleets. Far beyond Earth's borders, in deep silent space, ships awoke. From hibernation, engines rumbled to life. Stealth fields shimmered like dark water. These were not the ships the galaxy had seen in open trade or peace missions. These were Revenant-class warships, the kind built in secret, the kind never acknowledged in public. Back in the hall of the council, alien leaders congratulated themselves. "They will not dare attack us," said one. "They have too much to lose." But in a shadowed corner of the chamber, a Kelvarian intelligence officer sat in silence, replaying the image of the human ambassador in his mind. There had been something in that man's eyes. Not the desperation of the weak, but the calm of someone holding a weapon no one else understood. For now, the galaxy carried on as if nothing had changed. Trade routes bustled. War games between rival empires continued. Life went on. But out there, past the glowing edges of star maps, humanity was moving. Quietly, swiftly. and the day would come when the laughter in the council would be replaced with silence. And fear, whispers in the void, the galaxy moved, on as if the human warning had been nothing more than a passing storm. Cargo haulers drifted along trade lanes. Patrol ships scanned for smugglers. Civilian news channels aired light comedy about angry little Earth. But in the silent edges of space, the first cracks began to appear. It started with the Shirath patrol ship Horizon Dawn. The vessel sent a routine status ping at 3:14 Standard Time. The message was clean, calm, nothing unusual. But 20 minutes later, a nearby listening station picked up a single burst of static, sharp, high-pitched, like metal screaming in a vacuum. Then, silence. No distress signal. No debris. No survivors. When the Shirath military reviewed the last transmission, they noticed something strange. In the final second before the static, the ship's cameras caught a faint shadow sliding across the stars. Too large to be an asteroid, too silent to be a known vessel. A week later, the Varellan mining colony on Ernos 3 lost all contact with its orbital relay. The colony's surface scanners recorded nothing. Just one moment, the relay was there. The next, it was gone. The official report claimed equipment failure. The miners didn't believe it. Some swore they saw a distant shape moving against the black sky, a shape that blocked out the stars like a passing moon. Soon, more stories spread. A Halorian trade convoy came across a drifting alien frigate, its hull scorched with deep, perfect cuts, the kind only high-precision weapons could make. There were no bodies inside, but the escape pods were still docked. Whatever had happened, the crew hadn't even had time to run. The captain of the convoy refused to tow the frigate, saying it felt wrong to bring it aboard. Instead, she sent a short message to her superiors. There's something out here. It's watching us. In the Galactic Council, these reports were met with laughter or frustration. The Drask Confederacy's ambassador slammed his clawed hand on the table. These are border raiders, he growled. Primitive human pirates, nothing more. But the Kelvarian intelligence officer, the same one who had watched the human ambassador closely, didn't speak. He knew the humans weren't pirates. Pirates leave survivors. Pirates take spoils. This was something else. On Earth, the truth was no secret. Deep within the Revenant Fleet Command, Admiral Yara Solin stood in a darkened control room. Large holographic displays showed the positions of alien patrols, colonies, and supply lines. Her voice was calm as she addressed her captains through secure channels. Continue Phase 2. No witnesses. No transmissions. Every target must vanish. The captains responded in short, firm voices. Acknowledged. Out in the black, the Revenant-class warships moved like predators, not rushing, not announcing themselves. They slid between sensor blind spots, hiding in the shadows of moons, drifting behind asteroid belts. When they struck, it was always the same, sudden, silent, final. For the first time in centuries, fear began to grow in the quiet corners of the galaxy. Merchants traveling near human space started buying old war-grade shields for their freighters. Civilian shuttles hired extra armed escorts. Even smugglers, the ones who laughed at danger, began changing their routes to avoid human sectors. Still, the Galactic Council refused to act. They called the fear border paranoia and moved on to debates about trade tariffs and minor disputes between empires. But outside their shining cities, in the deep black between the stars, whispers spread faster than any broadcast. One night, in a quiet bar on the mining station Koro's Edge, a group of alien workers spoke in hushed voices. "My cousin works salvage," one said. "He found a cargo ship, split in half like paper. Not blasted, not melted, sliced." Another leaned in. "Sliced by what?" The first shook his head. He said the edges were so clean you could see the crew still strapped in there. Seats. Nobody laughed. In the war room of the Kelvarian Empire, intelligence agents stared at a slowly growing map of missing ships and dead colonies. The pattern was becoming clear. Every strike was moving inward, toward the heart of the councils. Territory. An uneasy silence filled the room as one of the younger officers whispered, almost to himself, "They're not random attacks. They're closing in." No one wanted to say what everyone was thinking. The humans had given their warning, and now they were keeping their promise. Asterisk. The first strike, the Galactic Council had grown tired of the rumors. In their bright, polished meeting hall, ambassadors argued loudly. The Drask representative slammed his clawed fist on the table. These so-called disappearances are nothing but accidents and smugglers. He roared. Humans do not have the strength to fight us. The Halorian envoy leaned back with a smirk. If they did, we would have seen their fleets by now. But far from the Council's safe heart worlds, in a lonely sector marked only on old mining maps, the truth was about to show itself. The outpost that vanished, Outpost Veron 9, was a small alien listening station orbiting a barren moon. Its job was simple: monitor deep space signals near human territory. For months, nothing unusual had happened. The crew passed the time playing games, telling stories, and complaining about the food. On the night of the strike, Veron 9's main sensor picked up a faint, irregular signal. The technician frowned. It looked like an ancient distress code, human in origin. "Probably a trick," the commander muttered, walking toward the console. But before he could investigate further, the station's lights flickered. A low vibration shook the metal walls. Then came silence. Through the main viewport, the crew saw it, a massive shadow sliding out from behind the moon. At first, they thought it was an asteroid. Then it turned, and black armor plating caught the faint light of the distant sun. It was a ship. A human ship, but not like any they had seen before. Its hull was jagged and dark, with no markings. Along its sides, narrow slits glowed faintly red, like the eyes of a predator in the dark. The strike, before the crew could send a warning, the station's comms went dead. Emergency systems failed one after another, as if something was shutting them down on purpose. A single beam of white-blue light swept across the outpost, and in an instant, everything was gone. The moon's orbit was empty. Not debris, not dust, nothing. Hours later, a passing freighter scanned the area. Its sensors showed no sign the outpost had ever existed. It was as if it had been erased from history. The footage. No one wanted to see when the alien military recovered a fragment of the freighter's recording. It was shown to a select group of high-ranking officials. The final frame before Veron 9's disappearance showed the human warship in chilling detail. Its prow, shaped like a blade, its engine trails silent and cold, its hull shimmering with a strange distortion field. Across the bottom of the image, one human word was stenciled in black steel: Revenant. The Council reacts news of the outpost's destruction reached the Galactic Council within days. The Drask ambassador's voice was quieter this time. This could be faked. The Kelvarian intelligence officer shook his head slowly. It is not fake, and it is only the beginning. But the Council refused to declare war. To do so would mean admitting they had underestimated humanity. Pride held their tongues. Earth's move on Earth. Admiral Yara Solon stood on the deck of the Revenant, watching the holographic map shift as more targets lit up. "Phase 3, she ordered. Her voice carried no anger, only precision. 3. More Revenant-class ships slipped from deep space hiding spots. Their courses were not random, each one aimed at a key alien. Military hub. The galaxy still thought humanity's borders were small. Soon, They would learn Earth's reach was far longer than anyone imagined. The rumors become fear in spaceport taverns. Smugglers whispered about ghost ships that appeared without warning, erased entire stations, and vanished before sensors could track them. Some said the humans had weapons that could bend light and sound. Others claimed they had engines that could leap across entire sectors in seconds, that no one could confirm the truth. But everyone agreed on one thing. The humans were no longer asking to be left alone. The message 2 days after the strike on Viren 9, every major news network in the galaxy was hacked. For 30 seconds, screens everywhere went black dot then. A human face appeared. It was Jonathan Reeve, the ambassador who had walked out of the council chamber weeks ago. His eyes were steady, his voice calm. You were warned. The screen cut to black again dot, and in the silence that followed, the galaxy realized the first strike had already begun. Asterisk the burned worlds. The galaxy still believed humanity's. Attacks were surgical strikes, dangerous but limited. They were wrong. The first world falls, the planet Torsion V, was a mid-tier colony of the Drask Confederacy. A quiet place of silver cities and green oceans. At dawn, its skies shimmered with the soft light of the twin suns. People were just waking when the horizon caught fire. From orbit, 3 Revenant-class warships emerged from stealth. Without warning, they fired. It wasn't a barrage. It wasn't chaos. It was precise. Thin beams of white energy cut across the surface, slicing cities in silence before the sound could even reach the air dot. In less than an hour, Torsion V was gone. The oceans boiled, the land turned black, and then the planet's crust split in a glowing red wound. There were no survivors. The message to the Drask meant for the planet's destruction. One Revenant dropped a data core into orbit, a cold metallic sphere. When the Drask military recovered it, they found a single sentence inside, written in human standard. You laughed. Now you understand. The second strike 2 weeks later, Valoran Prime, the jewel of the Halorian Union, faced the same fate. This time, the human ships didn't bother with stealth. They arrived in the middle of the day, their black hulls blotting out the sun. People looked up, expecting a declaration, a demand something. Instead, the Revenants began their work. Every military base was vaporized in the first 2 minutes. Every spaceport followed. Civilian cities were left until last, not because the humans were merciful, but because they wanted the evacuation, ships to see what was coming. The survivors who escaped told the same story. There was no sound, just light, and then nothing. The Council's panic when the news reached the Galactic Council. The chamber was no longer filled with laughter. The Drask ambassador's voice shook as he spoke. We must unite our fleets, now. But the Kelvarian intelligence officer shook his head grimly. They won't give us time. We are not hunting them. They are hunting us. The Ghost Fleet's patterned Kelvarian analysts began to see the truth. The human strikes weren't random. They were moving along an invisible path, like a net tightening around the Council's most important worlds. And each attack was bigger than the last. The third world, ash in the sky. The next target was Relena X, a fortress world. Its atmosphere was thick with defense satellites, its surface lined with railgun batteries and shield towers. For centuries, it had been considered impossible to conquer. The Revenant fleet proved that wrong in less than an hour. Instead of charging the defenses head-on, the human ships dropped massive tungsten rods from orbit, each one falling with such speed that the planet's shields collapsed in minutes. When the dust cleared, the once proud fortress was nothing but a glowing wasteland. Fear spreads like fire. Entire sectors began to empty as refugees fled toward the Council's core. Trade routes collapsed. Patrol fleets abandoned their posts. On backwater worlds, alien families whispered to their children, "Don't speak of Earth. Don't draw their attention. The galaxy had known war before, but never like this. This was not conquest. This was erasure. Earth remained silent in the war room beneath the mountains of Earth. Admiral Yara Solon watched as 3 more targets lit up on her tactical map. Her voice was calm. Phase 4 begins tomorrow. No speeches. No broadcasts. No mercy. The galaxy had ignored the warning. Now humanity was burning their name into the stars. Asterisk. The breaking point. The galaxy had reached its limit. 3 worlds turned to ash. Entire fleets gone without a single distress call. Refugees flooding every safe harbor. The Galactic Council could no longer pretend this was just human arrogance. The gathering of the Armada on the fortress world of Caltherion Prime. Every ship that could fight was being pulled into the largest fleet in recorded history. Drask war cruisers with spined armor. Holorian plasma carriers glowing blue. Calvarian stealth destroyers, their hulls vanishing into the void. Even the Virellan Dominion, long at odds with the Council, sent squadrons of their massive siege dreadnoughts. The plan was simple. Corner the humans, surround their fleet, and crush them in one decisive battle. In the war chamber, Council leader Vorinth spoke with a voice that shook the air. They will no longer hide in shadows. We will drag them into the light and end them. The Bait Scouts reported a large human fleet massing near the dying star Velo 7. It was an uninhabited system, far from trade routes, the perfect place for an ambush. The Council's admirals smiled. The humans had finally made a mistake. Within days, the Grand Armada arrived at the edge of the system, more than 2,000 warships strong. The human fleet was there, just as the scouts had said, 20 Revenant-class ships, sitting silent in the shadow of the dying star. The trap closes, the Armada surrounded the humans, forming a shimmering wall of ships. From the flagship Steel, Dominion, Admiral Karat of the Drask Confederacy opened a wide-band channel. Earth vessel commanders, he growled, you are surrounded. Power down your weapons and surrender, or be destroyed. For a moment, the only reply was static. Then, the voice of Admiral Yara Solon came through, calm, almost cold. You think you've trapped us. You've trapped yourselves. The star's last breath. Before the Armada could respond, the human fleet moved, not forward, but backward, deeper into the star's gravity well. Then the Revenants fired. Not at the enemy. Not at ships. They fired into the star. The beam struck deep into its unstable core, igniting a chain reaction. Sensors screamed warnings across every alien bridge. The star began to collapse. Within seconds, it imploded into a black hole. The galaxy's strongest fleet. Gone, the gravitational pull ripped the Armada apart. Ships tried to flee, but the humans had planned every move. Their own fleet used gravity slingshot maneuvers to escape the kill zone before the collapse. The aliens were not so lucky. In minutes, the most powerful fleet the galaxy had ever assembled was gone, swallowed by the endless dark. The few survivors drifted in the outer system, their ships crippled. One Calvarian captain's last transmission was intercepted by deep space listeners. We thought they were defending themselves. They are hunting us. The silence after the storm. The news of the Armada's destruction spread like a virus. Worlds that had once mocked humanity now locked their doors, shut down their ports, and prayed Earth would not come for them next. In the council chamber, no one spoke of victory anymore. The only question was how much time they had left before humanity decided the war was over on their terms. Earth's next step in the dark war room under the mountains of Earth. Admiral Solon stood before the tactical map. The enemy's largest defense was gone. Her eyes narrowed as she marked the next series of targets. Not colonies this time, but the core worlds of the Council itself. She turned to her staff. Phase 5, she said. We finish this. Asterisk, fear spreads like Fire, the destruction of the Grand Armada, should have been impossible. It was the strongest fleet in the galaxy, forged from centuries of war, united against a single enemy. Yet, in less than an hour, it was gone. The collapse of order across the galaxy, the effect was immediate. Patrol fleets abandoned their posts. Trade routes fell silent. Entire sectors cut communication, afraid their signals would attract attention. On border worlds, people stopped using the word human in public. In markets and bars, they referred to Earth only as the shadow dot. No one laughed at the old warnings anymore. Refugees and rumors, massive waves of refugees poured into the Council's inner territories. Cargo haulers, mining barges, even old war freighters were stripped of weapons and filled with families. In docking bays, arguments broke out as desperate captains demanded to be let inside fortified stations. And with the refugees came the stories. A merchant claimed she saw an entire moon split in half by a single shot. A Hilorian officer swore. A human ship appeared inside his fleet formation without using any detectable jump drive. One Drask survivor said he heard a voice over his comms before his ship's engines died, a human voice whispering, "Too late." The political firestorm inside the council chamber, panic ruled. Some species demanded immediate surrender to Earth, no conditions. Others argued for a last stand, even if it meant extinction. Council leader Vorinth tried to speak with authority, but his voice shook. If we surrender, there is no guarantee they will stop. If we fight, there is no guarantee we will win. The Kelvarian intelligence officer finally spoke after hours of silence. "You are still thinking like rulers," he said. "They are not fighting for territory. They are teaching a lesson." No one dared to ask what the final lesson would be. The Shadow's presence, meanwhile, in deep space, Revenant-class warships continued to move unseen. They no longer needed to destroy anything to spread fear. Sometimes they would simply appear in a system, drifting silently at the edge of sensor range. Watching. Alien fleets would scramble, shields raised, weapons armed, but the humans would never attack. They would just leave. The message was clear. Earth could strike at any time, and no one could stop them. The fall of allies, even within the Council's inner core, unity began to crumble. The Virellan Dominion withdrew its fleets, sealing its borders. The Hilorian Union secretly sent envoys to Earth, hoping to buy separate peace. Rumors spread that some species had already surrendered in secret, offering tribute in exchange for survival. The once mighty Galactic Council was starting to look less like a government, and more like prey. Earth's silence in the underground. War room beneath Earth's surface, Admiral Yara Solon stood over the star map. Dozens of systems glowed red, targets already hit. Dozens more were marked in white, still untouched. Her officers waited for the next order. But Solon didn't speak right away. She was thinking, calculating. Finally, she said, "They are ready to listen now." But not all of them. We make an example. The room was silent. Every officer knew what that meant. Phase 6 would not be about destroying fleets or burning worlds. It would be about showing the galaxy exactly what happens when Earth decides enough. Asterisk. The day the galaxy trembled, the galaxy was no longer at war. It was holding its breath. No one knew where the Revenant fleet would strike next. Every ship and every system waited for the flash of white light, the sudden silence, the erasure. But the attack never came. The arrival instead, in the heart of the Galactic Council's capital system, sensors screamed as an impossible reading filled their screens. Something enormous had appeared beyond the outer defense grid. When the visual feeds cleared, the image stunned even the most hardened veterans. A single Revenant-class ship drifted forward, but it was towing something. It was a moon. No, not a moon. It was the shattered remains of Torsion V, The first burned world, pulled through space like a warning banner. The ship moved slowly, deliberately, dragging the dead planet into high orbit over the Council's homeworld. The silence in the sky on the streets below. Billions of citizens looked up. The blackened half-world hung in the sky like a wound, blocking the sun's light. It did not fire. It did not move. It simply stayed there. Every broadcast channel was overridden. Every screen, every hologram, every device displayed the same image, the human ambassador, Jonathan Reeve. The final message, his voice was calm. We warned you. You chose to laugh. You chose to test us. Now you will remember. He paused, letting the words sink into the minds of every being across the galaxy. This is not a treaty. This is not peace. This is understanding. We will not rule you. We will not join you. But the next time you raise a hand against humanity, remember the sky above you. And ask yourself if it's worth losing your world. The transmission ended. The departure for 3 days. The burned world remained in orbit. No one dared approach it. No one dared fire upon the Revenant. And then, just as silently as it had arrived, the human ship powered its engines, towing the ruined planet away into the black. It jumped to slipspace and was gone. The galaxy changes from that day forward. The Galactic Council changed its laws. Human space was marked as untouchable, not by treaties, but by unspoken survival. Old rivalries between alien empires quieted because no one wanted to appear weak enough for Earth to notice them. Children grew up, hearing the story of the burned world in the sky. Merchants refused contracts that took them near human borders. Soldiers whispered about the revenants, still out there, waiting for the next time someone forgot the warning. Earth watches on Earth. Admiral Yara Solon stood in the war room, watching. As the red markers on her map slowly faded away, the war was over. Not because they had destroyed every enemy, but because they had made every enemy afraid to begin. She turned to her officers with a faint, cold smile. Stand down the fleet, but keep them ready. No one asked why. They all knew. The galaxy would stay quiet until someone forgot what happened the day the shadow of Earth fell across the stars. And when that day came, humanity would be ready. Asterisk.